You see me?
Yep, we can see you. We are here today. This is Jamie Stock, and I am interviewing Mary Smith. And we are going to learn about helping teens and children and daughters with anxiety and some other things. How are you doing today, Mary?
I'm great. How are you? Happy Easter to everyone who celebrates.
Yes, it's very fun. So let's start it. Let's just get into it. How long have you been married? How many kids do you have?
So I am Mary Smith, and I married John Smith, which is already a great start. He's actually partially Dutch and part Canadian, but there's a long reason why he became John Smith. But anyways, and I met him when I lived abroad for a long time after college. I ran a business in Switzerland, and then I went to did my MBA over in France, and he and I met there.
Wow.
So I've been married to him since 1997. So however many years that is. And it's a lot of years.
Right.
And he and we moved to Argentina right away. We lived in Argentina for several years. And I have two daughters that were born there. So one just graduated from college out in California, Berkeley, and she's working in New York. So one's on sort of truly launched. And then I have three other daughters. They're all within 5 years, very close. And they're all in college. Well, they're all in college now. So four daughters. Um, and how many kids? That's what you asked. Do you
That's
want to know? I won't go into the kids unless you want to know a little more information.
no, that's great. And tell us, okay, so you did an MBA in France. How was that?
It was great. It happens to be a very good MBA school just outside of Paris in Fontainebleau. And you do. I mean, a bunch of it's in English, and then some of it has to be in French. So you have to speak a couple languages to go. But I had lived in Switzerland for a long time before I went there. That's where I ran like a skiing holiday business. I just did that when I was young and impetuous,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it was a great course. I met really fascinating people. I did it, a little older. A lot of kids do MBAs young. I really encourage people to wait. I did it when people tend to be older at that school. And so I did it when I was like 27. So really met fascinating people who, yeah, and just from all walks of life and all cultures, which I really feel has been, it's a real, it's a real boon to have been able to do that, because I think you learn so much when you just experience different people and different upbringings and different cultures. And
Mhm.
I just learned a lot. So I have a broad perspective that way, which I'm really happy to have gotten.
That's awesome. I love that because I think there's so much you can learn from other people and getting outside of your shell. So that's beautiful. So let's just get into what is it that you do and what are you passionate about? How did you get started?
So, um, so I have four girls, as you know, and that just happened. That was, I think I sort of assumed I'd be this great parent. I'm a pretty good person. I have good friends. I have a sense of, socializing. I'm bright. I think I just assumed I'd be a good parent. And, so I have these four adorable girls, and I'm a bit, I'm a person who moves, doesn't stop. So sort of four girls. It was crazy. One was born with medical issues, and very difficult. A lot of hospitalization, tubes, like all kinds of things. Very, very difficult for a lot of years. Um, so I had these four adorable sort of children, and it was wonderful. And there's so much we enjoy. And there was a shift at a certain point when they started to get a little bit older, and things started to get more difficult. And especially, right before the tweens. I mean, I think what basically happened in my family is the second one is the one with medical issues. And I have these other three that are these sort of natural athletes. Not
Mhm.
that you need to be an athlete. They did ballet for a long time. She did some of it, but because of her lung issues, she just has different issues. So it's very hard for her not to be exactly the same as them. Kids like to be like their, especially when you have four girls that are so close. So it just created a dynamic that was difficult. I didn't love her any less, right? But it just created a dynamic that was difficult. And on top of that, you as a parent and me as a parent bring to the table what we bring.
Mhm.
And I have my own sources of trauma from when I was young, and there's a lot of depression and anxiety in my family, and my coping skills to get through them were go out, do well, keep moving, succeed, be number one, right? The whole perfectionism thing. And that worked. that worked for a really long time. There was angst and pain, and I couldn't quite figure out what that part of it was, but it worked until it didn't. And I think sometimes having children is what brings out those childhood memories, which are what are the basis of our schemas. They're the basis of, I talk about it. I did another presentation on, if people want it, they can ask us about it. I did one on sort of the stories we carry in our back and how that impacts our, I call it a backpack, and how that impacts our parenting. So I was, even though I was loving and fun and wonderful, my anxiety and depression were heightened with these children because I have these stories. And so you're giving them things you don't realize you're giving them. So suddenly everything sort of changed. And, suddenly I have children that are yelling, children that are mad, kids that aren't liking each other as much as they used to. Problems in school, like we'd never had a problem in school. One child shutting down because of the anger. And it sort of went from adorable to awful. And it was never awful. Like I want to say I'm very blessed, but it was awful if I can sort of be both, right? And my children are wonderful, right? That's not the point. Nothing is their issue. So in the midst of it all, because my anxiety and depression's ramping up and I'm trying not to address it, I remember going to doctor's appointments and they'd be, for a child, and I'd be in tears and they'd be like, "Are you taking care of yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I work out every day. I'm fine. I have no time to look after me. I got 4 kids." And that's not the case, right? And so in midst of all, I'm trying to get to the bottom of my depression. And really, I learned I've done all the studying of neuroscience afterwards, and I've studied parenting afterwards. But in my world, before I started studying all of that, really meditation was the thing that taught me so much, because I started to really understand from a very personal perspective what the brain does and how influential that brain is on us. And I began to see my own issues coming up in my children. And that had been the only thing that I didn't want them to get. And thought by being happy and fun and putting them in these things and having them succeed and do really well, that would combat it. And it doesn't. And I want to reiterate that I'm very lucky. I have 4 amazing girls and they're doing very well, but they also have some of this crap that we have to deal with. So what I learned, I sort of, and I think at the same time, like a whole bunch of my decisions were being driven by fear, right? I do a ton of training in everything I do about the limbic system, a ton, because you have to understand your brain to be able to parent, I think, and understand what you're doing and what your kids are doing. So what I think I started to get a very clear understanding of children's needs and behavior, and understanding that behavior is really just a fever. But this was all happening so fast with 4 kids and growing up and teens and teenagers and young kids, and that I got to a point where I did a few things where I think I wanted to change my parenting, but I kind of outsourced a lot of it. I got a lot of therapy for the kids where they needed it. I was looking for, switching schools because that would fix the one issue. And I think what I really learned, and a little bit late, I would have liked to learn it earlier, which is why I got into this, right? I want to have parents not learn the hard way like I did. But what I believe now is what kids really need, and I know this is obvious, is us. They need their mom, they need their dad, they need the 2 moms, they need whatever the caretaker is, the grandmother, whatever that family unit looks like. They need the safety and that relationship. And so, and I won't go into all of that, but we need to calm their systems when they're growing up. And that's the biggest gift we can give them if we don't want them to have anxiety and depression later in life. And they'll succeed at the things that they're supposed to succeed at if we give them that. So what happened is when it all became, crazy, and then I learned all of that, I'm now getting to sort of how I got into this, just to make my story sort of follow. I then started reading more and more, right? And I found it fascinating, right? And people like Dan Siegel, who makes it so understandable for a parent. And it takes all that, and I studied neuroscience at a much higher level because I'm, desperate to kind of understand it. And I like understanding it, but it can be really dumbed down. And so I had this feeling that what I wanted to do is help parents understand those things when they're younger, because the impact that they can have on their children's mental health, and mental health is all of it. right? I have D1 athletes. I have ones that do really well at sports. I have, but that stuff will come if it's the right thing for them. And if that's not for them, they'll figure something else out if we're holding them up and giving them this safe space at home and loving them for what they are. And I know it sounds easy, but it's not easy.
Mhm.
And the bottom line is that I think I was always looking for that solution and I wanted it tomorrow. I want everything tomorrow. I want my business to be a success tomorrow. I want my whatever. I want to be able to run faster tomorrow. It's the way I am. Amazon Prime does it for us. The cell phone does it for us, right? We can get everything tomorrow. We can get it today if you pay a little extra. And you don't have to move from your desk. And there's that guy, I can't think of his hit name right offhand, 10,000 hours of practice to get good at anything. It takes 10,000 hours to get really good at listening to your child if you're not born with that. If your parents didn't listen to you, you didn't learn that skill.
Mhm.
And so I was looking for those solutions. And I think in retrospect, what I feel I missed. So I want to sort of say, I was in it for the long haul, but I didn't realize it was the long haul.
Mhm.
I wanted it tomorrow. And so I did some things that I regret,
Mhm.
where I looked for someone else to solve my kid's problem. And it was a mistake. And it still makes me sad, right? It was a mistake. And so what I learned and what I wanted to do for parents was make it bite size. I want to help them in bite sized pieces. It's not an overhaul. You can read Ross Greene's The Explosive Child, but every child, every parent, every situation is different, especially if you have a child with special needs or severe something or something else. It's hard. And so what I wanted to do, so I spent the first year doing a ton of research and I sort of came up with my 5 or 6, I haven't honed it exactly, 6 or 7 habits that I think parents need. And that's the book I'm working on. And I do something called Microstep Minutes, which is like short information on brain science, what's going wrong with your kid, connecting the two and giving you one thing to work at. Because I think it's like a ship. And you might have all heard that story of the people that went to Antarctica and the the pilot was 2 degrees off, which put him 28 miles off at his destination, and they crashed into the mountain, right? And that's the boat thing, right? If you're not following and you're off by one, you miss by this much. And my point isn't the missing, because that's why we have the apology. You can make as many mistakes as you want. And I really want to repeat that, parents. You can make as many mistakes as you want. And I have one little thing that I write about the apology. It's all you need to know. It'll take you 2 minutes to read it. So you can, ask me for that. But what it really says is we can make some really small changes today and we'll change the kid's behavior. You can usually turn things around in 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how severe things are. But the 2 or 3 things that you make little changes on, they're going to make an enormous difference for your child as they get older. And so that's sort of how I see my role. And then I'll stop, because I will talk about why people don't think, why we think we should be able to do it without help. But
Right,
I'm going to
right.
put that off. So does that answer? That was a little long, but does
Yeah.
that answer it?
No, that's beautiful. That's absolutely, yeah, that's something. What is one thing, I mean, and maybe you kind of answered that already, but one thing that you really want parents to remember and take away from you if you only got to have one conversation with them?
So this is going to sound salesy, but it's not. So I want you to take it knowing that it's obviously I fully believe in what I do. If you don't fully believe in what you do, right? So I fully believe. So obviously, I think it's good for everybody. It makes me sad if people say, they don't want to do it because for whatever reason, because I feel it's helpful. So the one thing I think is, if you were brought up by, not perfect, but parents who could give you everything you need. I think of my friends that wake up every day and have no angst and make decisions based on what they want, but can be compassionate about someone else. Like, if you grew up with 2 parents like that, like, God bless you, right? You're probably a great parent, because that's the training we get.
Right.
And then we read all these books, and that's great. But it's tax time. So let's take TurboTax for an example, right? TurboTax is this great thing. We all have the tools to do our own taxes. We get the stuff in the mail that we get. We have access to whatever savings we have. TurboTax lays it all out for us, just like all these books do. And you know what? If you have a W-2 and a few savings and a couple investments, TurboTax is going to be great. But if you have a bunch of stuff going on, and you've never done taxes before and you can't do it, you try the TurboTax and it doesn't work, and you're finally like, all right, I'm going to pay someone. Do you wake up and have shame? Do you wake up and think, I'm an awful parent? No. And so many people, especially women, come to me and tell me how awful they are and how much they're screwing up. And you just wouldn't do that if it was taxes. And it's really no different. And I think in our generation, right, I do believe in our culture right now, it's why you can't find a therapist is we're sending, and people need therapy and kids need therapy. But I think 30% of our kids need therapy that are going to therapy. I think a lot of them just need that family dynamic to shift. And it's not that hard. But getting a little bit of support and handholding for a handful of weeks to do that, it's okay. Right. And that, I think that's the lesson, because that's what I wish I'd had. I wish I had someone say to me in my really dark years where it was really hard and I saw the impact it was having on my kids and I didn't know what to do. I wish someone would have been and the therapists don't have, they sort of have time for me. They're doing a great job, right? But they don't have, it's two different things. They're taking care of your kid. But I wish I'd had the person, and I had one finally for a little bit, who said, I need you. You're the change agent. I need you, Mary, to step up. So let's do whatever this takes. And if it means, and I try to do it where people doesn't take a lot of people's time, but even if it took some time, and that's what I want to give. That's what I want to say to people. Don't be shameful if you're having a hard time, because you never learn. And a book that doesn't have your specific child and your background in mind can't untangle your situation. And that's okay. Right? And that's, so I think it's okay to need support. That's, I think, the message I would say. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I think that's spot on, and definitely something that, like you said, as women, we don't give that grace to ourselves. And
Right.
yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that. When you're sharing and you're helping these parents, what are some of the pros and cons that are really hard for you or that you've seen repeated often
Pros and cons of
helping parents?
I don't really see a con of helping them. I could talk about a mistake I made early on.
Okay.
A mistake I made early on was not realizing that I might get triggered if someone's situation was too close to mine.
Right.
And that happened early on with a client. And she had two, kids that were in their tweens, and there was a real shift going on, and they were angry and hurt and hurting. And this woman is this amazing woman, bright, powerful, not that you have to be powerful, but confident, strong, who had her own baggage. And I knew I could help. But I went in too hard. Right. So because sometimes I think I wish someone had shaken me.
Right.
So I think in that particular one, where I felt so triggered and wanted so badly, I could feel it, taking those kids and turning that situation. The kids were good kids. All of our kids are good kids.
Right.
But so obviously I have my own coach that I do always when I have coaching. And so working through it once and you've figured it out, right? Because I've got enough awareness. But that one makes me sad to this day. But that's everyone else. Everyone else has had a good experience. And I guess the other thing that happens is I guess this would be a con. The pros are when you get someone who's there, who's sort of ready and is willing to kind of try a few different things, you see a change. Yeah. That is the pro. And they say to you, this is great. You made a difference. And I feel really good about it. So that's the pro. Another con is that if you get someone maybe before they're ready, and this might be similar to my first one, is that I would like to spend more time. I'm a certified life coach as well. I should spend more time on them
Mhm.
because the parent has you're bringing you are 50% of it, and you are bringing you to the table. And I'm, more than once have said to someone, that's great you have a coach. And I keep that coach, but, or maybe take 2 months off from that coach and come to me because I can do that coaching bit. But I also have this piece of expertise that can really see what's happening and give you specific advice because I'm a consultant, not just a coach, and as to what to change. And I can give you that life coaching piece. But I think sometimes I feel like I have to give them the tools for the kid piece because that's what they're paying me for,
Mhm.
but they may not be ready for it.
Right.
And maybe I just need, I'm sort of thinking as I talk to you, maybe I just need to have that conversation with them, but I'm afraid of losing them because they want to see change in their child so quickly.
Right.
But you need both. And I repeat over and over, you are the change agent.
Mhm.
And I really believe that.
Yeah, I agree. And I've done some work on myself, in the last couple of years and healing that trauma from childhood. And if you don't, I always liken it, and I've said it on here before, it's putting that oxygen mask on yourself first. You can't help somebody when you're not present. And if you're dead, you're not going to help your child. You've got to take care of yourself first. So that's a beautiful message. Thank you.
Well, and the thing that happens, and it's a coaching thing anyways, right? The
Mhm.
thing that happens is you get aha moments.
Mhm.
Because as we're discussing the issue with the child, if the client allows me to dig a little, it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, you're right. I'm petrified. She's not going to like me. She's not going to succeed, just like my father wanted me to succeed. Now you've broken it out into the open,
Yeah.
and it just makes it easier.
Yeah.
That's simple, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Well, Mary, you have an awesome setup. You're coaching, you're consulting, and so what we'd like to do is partner with you and share this on our sites so that people can reach out to you if they'd like to come to you for that help. Um, as we're wrapping up, I want to ask you something not even related to this. What is something that you are maybe watching, eating, reading? What is something that you're into right now that's really fun?
So that's funny. In in during COVID, I've always cooked and stuff, and I started sourdough. So sourdough's my so I kept we had sourdough and chickens during COVID. Those are the two things we sort of started. And so my kids are home, so I made their sourdough and their yogurt. Like I like cooking.
Yeah.
Um, Netflix, there's so much I want to watch. I can't do it. I get so sucked in. Like it's just brutal. So I try not to do Netflix because, then I'm always wanting to watch it. Um, I am reading a book on really how the brain talks to us because I'm always working on that because my brain is very mean to me. Like I am a queen of shame. And and then the book that I want to read is Margaret Atwood because I've always tried her and not liked her. And a best friend told me the other day that she loves her. So I'm going to try to read Edible because I love fiction. And
Oh,
so that's what I do. And it's very boring. I do the Peloton. I work out. I do yoga.
that's awesome.
And I have 4 kids in college, and 3 of them play D1 sport. Oh no, 2 only now are in school that are playing D1 sports, but it's lacrosse season, so that takes up a lot of my time
Wow.
because we watch the
Oh,
games.
you. Yeah. Yeah. You'd have to do some working out to keep up with that.
Exactly.
Well, Mary, I appreciate you so much. So we're going to get this posted in the next couple of hours. So remember, Mom League, that you are going to have the link under the video so that you can reach out to Mary. We will have that. How long before your book is done are you estimating?
So, and I'm going to mention one other thing quickly, but my book, the first book, I'm hoping end of the year. I have these things called microstep minutes that people can sign up for, and it's basically based on that. It's going to be different but similar. But I'm hoping we're just starting some creative now. I'm hoping end of the year, and then I, I do just to say I do this Facebook group that's a private, free Facebook group for moms of daughters. There are plenty of dads with sons that come, but I call it for moms of daughters, and um, with this objective of raising secure, confident women. Um, and I give away a lot of free content. So I'll just throw that out there as well. And yeah, so the book will be exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your time. Mom Lee, go ahead and look her up and we'll set those links. And remember, together we rise.
Together we ride.
Hey, we'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Really appreciate it. Have a
Bye.